Welcome back to the sixth tutorial on C++. Today we're just going to dig straight into object-oriented programming. So what is a class? We're going to be talking about classes and objects. So in C++ or just in all OOP programming language, think of an object or a class as something. So for example, a car. If you wanted to make a car in programming, you'd want a car class, which is going to store all the properties that make a car. So things like checking engines and checking tire pressures and how many doors, the make, the model, everything that you can think about inside of like a real life object, you're going to want a class for, right? So for this example, we're going to be building a car, okay? So we'll just do for, this isn't best practices to just have classes and objects being built into your main CPP file. Usually you want to have a header which kind of displays the class, but we'll talk about inheritance and like actually building kind of the smarter way to do it. But for now, let's just talk about the basics. So let's create a new class and we'll call it car. So now we have a new class called car. So there's a few things that a class is going to need. It's going to need public variables, or things that are public. And there's also protected, and there's also private. So basically, private can only be accessed by itself. So things that you want to stay secure. And then protected, kind of, I'll talk about protected in another video, but it's kind of weird because you can still like inherit these protected variables through other means. So we're really just going to be talking about public and private in this video. So let's just talk about some things that make up a car. We'll make it really basic. So when we build a car, we're probably going to need, we'll do a string and the name of the car. Also string the make of the car, so kind of like the brand. Maybe a double for its miles, or yeah, let's just do miles. And then let's just do integer. Oh, we'll make this private. So what about for a private variable? What if we made its age private? So only, it's private to this class. So int age. So the age of the car is going to be private. So now we have some variables. Now let's talk about actually making this car, right? So we could just go down here and do capital car, so capital C. So this is a car object, which we just created. And let's give it a name. Let's just call it my car. My car. So now we should be creating a car, but there's really going to be nothing into it. Let's talk about a constructor. A constructor is kind of like the default to your class. So we want, if someone made a car, right, and they didn't assign any values, we're just going to have like, empty spaces and just kind of, you kind of want to construct your class, right? So it looks like this, capital C. So we're making a function like this, and then it looks just like a function. So this is a constructor, and this is the default values that our car is going to have. So you want to name it whatever your class is so that it knows it's a constructor. So let's just say when a class is made, we give it a name of unselected. So now we're not actually selecting a name because they, didn't set that up, which we can also make another constructor where they actually have to set it up. So then we could do make, let's set that to unselected as well. And miles, it's a new car, so it shouldn't have any, right? So now, if we create a car and see out our object, let's do my car. Now let's actually access one of the values. So we have our class, which we created, my car, and let's just get the name of the car. And then, yep. So now let's run that, see what happens. We should get unselected. So we haven't selected any name, it's just a default constructor. So we just built a car, brand new, ready to be set up. So now let's actually make another constructor, which you don't always have to do this, but let's actually take some inputs. So let's actually take a name, a make, and miles. And then, oh wait, we actually have to set up string make. You don't want them to be the same as these because you actually want to set it. So let's actually just do new name, and let's take another string and let's just call it new make. Take another string and let's call it, oh no, not another string. We want just a double. That's what we did. New. Now imagine we're setting this up so you create a new car, but it's not a new car. You already know what you want it to be. So let's say someone submits their car. So they fill out a form and it's their name, their make, their model for your application. So now let's actually let them create a car that they already have information for. So this is kind of your backup plan. So it always has something. I don't know what I just clicked. That was weird. Let me go back to this. Okay. So now let's actually set up this class's variables based on what they're putting in. So we're going to want to put name, which references this actual car's name because we already have that saved. And let's set it to new name. So basically it's taking in this as a parameter. So when we actually create it, we can just change it. So let's also do make and let's set it to new make. And then what is it? Miles. Set that to new miles. Okay, so now we have two constructors, kind of like a default constructor, and then we also have a constructor, let's call it custom, so they can actually build this out. So now let's actually just quickly do this. So my car, instead of just doing a default car, let's just make a new car. So we'll do car, my old car. And now, what are we gonna put in here? So we're gonna need a string for our new name. So let's just say I have a record, and then let's also put in a make, which is, then also put a double for miles. So let's just say it has 150,000 miles. Okay, so now we're actually designing a car or taking input from someone, which you can get this dynamically, but we're hard coding it right now because I just have an example. So now let's see out our old car, which is using this basic constructor, and then let's see out our new car. So what is it? My old car. Oh, whoops. My old car. Let's see out its name. So now when we go over here, I didn't make a new line, so it's going to be bunched together. So now our first car is a brand new car, so it's just got default values. And then accord, you'll see we have an accord. So that's actually accessing our new car that we put in here. So now let's also talk about functions. So in our public, this is still public. Let's create a new function. Let's say, let's just do show car. And it's not going to take in anything. So we're just going to do a void. We're not really going to return anything. So what do we want this function to do so that, you know, we can access it by just doing mycar.show car, just like this. And then we don't need to see this out. So now we're running this function, show car, off of our old car because this class has this function. So we're storing it to it. So now let's make this do something. Let's just see out. We can do name and then a space, or we can even do a comma. And then let's see out make, and then let's do a comma with a space, and then let's do miles, and let's add the line. So now when we call this function that we put on our class car, which we made a new car, show car, it should show our car. And then we can even do this. We can just do cout and then make this a nice long line. And then we could also, instead of doing end line, you can just do \n, which makes a new line for you. So now what's going to happen when we use this function that we have built into our class or an object or whatever you want to create? It actually shows we still have unselected, which is our default constructor, which we don't have anything, which doesn't have a new line, so it still looks bad. But now we're outputting our Accord. Our Accord, it's a Honda, and it's got 150,000 miles. So, you know, you can go crazy with objects. There's still a lot of things you can, I can talk about, like destructuring, releasing memory. So you don't, when you're done with an object, you don't want it to just be taking up memory and, you it'll slow down your program. But I think this is a good intro into, just building any class you want. So for this example, we did car. You can make tons of objects. You're going to be using this a lot. So we even accessed a function. We accessed the variables, which you probably want to have getters and setters. So like get your name, just to kind of protect the integrity. And when you're getting the name, you kind of want it to be constant so you don't accidentally change the name. So, I mean, there's tons of things you can do, but this is just a really basic example. If you're in college and you hear the word constructor, and your default constructor, it's really important. So I think in the next video or the video after, we'll talk about inheritance. So let's say you have a car, and then let's say you have a passenger, so someone in the car, and you want to inherit in your passenger everything from the car, so you can see what car they're in. Or a parent, like a mom and a daughter, you want to be able to inherit the things from your parents, so you can see your house, how much money they make. Inheritance is really important. It just lets you be more dynamic. So we'll talk about that in another video. But I hope this sums up a basic class or an object, because you're going to be using it a lot in an object-oriented programming language. So thanks for watching, and make sure to like the video, help out the algorithm, get me those views. So see you next time. Thank you.